Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Coder. Last week we started working with collision detection, and we finished with the ghosts being able to be consumed by Pac-Man. And this week what we're going to do is we are going to allow the ghosts to pretty much consume Pac-Man. So then what happens is when a ghost consumes Pac-Man, then Pac-Man should die. The level should basically reset, and what that's going to entail is that all of the ghosts are going to go back to their original starting positions. The Pinky, Inky, and Clyde are going to go back to their ghost house, and Blinky is going to go back to the where he's at now, and Pac-Man is going to go back to where he's at now. Pretty much how everything looks now. Okay. Um, So there are a couple of things that we're not going to cover yet in this tutorial, and that is we're not going to do the Pac-Man animation. We're not going to get into any of the other things that happen, and let me just go over those really quick. In the original Pac-Man game, what'll happen is when a ghost comes in contact with Pac-Man and they're not in frightened mode, what'll happen is the game will pause for a second, okay? And then Pac-Man goes into this dying animation and plays a dying animation sound. The ghosts basically disappear from the screen. Okay, Pac-Man disappears from the screen, and then what happens is there are some words that come across the screen right here that'll say "Player Ready." At that point, there'll be a second that passes. Then the "Ready" word will disappear. The ghosts will come back, Pac-Man will come back, and then the player word will disappear, and then the ghosts will come back, and then Pac-Man will come back, and everything's kind of still at a standstill. Another second passes, and the ready word goes away, and then gameplay resumes. Okay. Pac-Man's life is decremented by 1, and then the gameplay just kind of resumes how it was before Pac-Man was consumed. So all of that we're going to get into in the next tutorial, because what I want to do is I also want to start with the game, because right now when the game starts it's pretty much just in play mode already. But what's supposed to happen when the game starts is we're supposed to see the intro screen, okay, the Pac-Man intro screen, and from there we can choose 1 or 2 player mode, and then from there once we start the game we get the intro sound with the game board. And then the player ready will flash across the screen, and then the player will disappear, the ready will disappear, and then the ghosts and Pac-Man appear, and then we start playing. We're going to implement all of that next week, and we're also going to add that animation, the death animation, the death sound, and then the game reset. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're actually going to make it so that when the ghost comes in contact with Pac-Man, we're going to send the ghosts back to their ghost house, and we're going to send Pac-Man back to his starting position, and then gameplay is just going to resume. So it's going to look like a split. Oh, everything just goes where it needs to go, and then game resumes. We're also not going to do a game over when Pac-Man loses more than 3 lives. That's also next week. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Let's see. The way we're going to do this is we're going to go into our scripts, okay? And we're going to create a restart script for Pac-Man and for the ghosts. Well, we're not going to create a script. We're going to create a method in the already existing scripts. So we're going to start with the Pac-Man script. Okay. So in the Pac-Man script, we're going to scroll up to right about where the start method is here, and we are going to go down here. And we're going to create another method, and it's going to be a public method. So we're going to create public void restart. Okay. And what we're going to put in this method is pretty much almost exactly what's in the start method. Okay. So, but we're going to start out with resetting Pac-Man's position. So we're going to do transform dot position, and we can't do that yet. I'm a little ahead of myself. What we need to do is we need to add a variable, okay, up here, because we don't know what Pac-Man's starting position is. we haven't specified that. Pac-Man just pretty much always starts where we put him in the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here and we're going to create a, let's see, let's not create it here because these are all public variables. We'll just create it down here. And we'll call this, oops, it's going to be private, and it's going to be a node, and it's going to be starting position. All right. So in the restart method then, what we're going to do is we're going to do transform.position equals starting position dot transform, because it's a node, dot position. And that's going to reset Pac-Man's position to his original starting position. And at that point, what we need to do is we also need to get the node. Let's see here. Do we need to get the node? No, because we already know the starting position is a node. Okay? So we're going to set his current node to starting position. And that's going to just say, okay, well, because when we move Pac-Man to a different position, his current node is still going to be the last node that he was at before we moved him. So we need to reset his current node to be the starting position node. Okay? And then we need to reset his direction vector to be vector2.left, because that's the original direction we want him to go in. We're going to set his orientation to also be vector2.left. And then we need to also set his next direction to vector2.left, just in case the player pressed a next direction while right when the ghost was trying to get him, because what will happen then is the next direction variable will be stored, and if he tries to go in a different direction, it'll just use the next direction. So we'll just reset that. And then finally, we're just going to call change position and pass in the direction variable. Okay, so this will restart Pac-Man. Now, if we want to see this in action, we need to actually call this method. And the way that we call this method is we're going to call it from the game board. But in order to call it from the game board needs to know that a restart needs to happen. Okay? So, in the ghost class, okay, if we look, scroll up until we get to the check collision method, we put a comment in here from last week saying Pac-Man should die. So obviously this would be a great place to trigger a game restart. Okay, so before we can do that, we need to go into our game board script and we need to create a method, and we'll make this public. So public void restart. Okay. And from here, we're going to need to call the restart method on Pac-Man. So we're going to do, let's see here, we need to get Pac-Man. So we're going to do game object, oops, game object, Pac-Man equals game object dot find yeah, we can just do Pac-Man is what we called it. Okay, so now we've got a reference to our Pac-Man game object. So now we can do Pac-Man dot get transform dot get component, and then we're gonna get the Pac-Man component, the script, and then we're gonna call the restart method that we just created in the Pac-Man script. Okay. So that's all this is doing right now. So then we can go back into our ghost class, and from here we can actually do game object dot find game dot transform dot get component game board dot restart. So we're calling the restart method on the game board class that we just created here. That restart method is going to find the Pac-Man game object and call the restart method on the Pac-Man game object that we created here. So now with all of those, we're going to save, and we're going to go back into our game and press the play button, of course. And then we're just going to try to get Pac-Man to get consumed by a ghost. So we're just going to sit here. And that did absolutely nothing. So we've got a null reference exception. Reference not set to an instance of an object. And that happened because we actually didn't set the pellet for Pac-Man. For his, let's see here. Oh, you know what? We can't make it private because we have to actually, so let's go back into the Pac-Man script really quick. Scroll up to the variables, and we made that private, okay? So we need to actually make that public because we need to be able to set that. Actually, we can keep it private. We're going to do this in the script instead of in the inspector. So we'll keep it private. And what we'll do is in the start method, where we get the node, his current position, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to set his starting position to node. Okay, because that node gets his current position, and we're going to set starting position node to the node. So we'll save that. And let's go back and press play. And this time it should work. We're just going to wait here. And Pac-Man got reset. And Pac-Man got reset. And he got reset again. And he got reset again. And again. Alright, so Pac-Man's getting reset. Pac-Man's getting reset just like he should be. Now we have to worry about the ghosts getting reset. Alright? So the ghosts, same thing. We're going to go into the ghost script. We are going to scroll up all the way to where the start method is. And then we are going to create another method, a public void restart. Okay. The first thing we're going to want to do is change the position. So transform.position equals starting position, because we've already created that for the ghosts, .transform.position. Okay, so all of them are going to get reset to their original position. We are going to reset a few variables. We need to reset actually let's see here. We need to set the ghost release timer because that one's already counted up. We need to change is in ghost house to true for 3 of the ghosts. We need to reset mode change iteration to 1 and the mode change timer to 0. And I believe that's it. So ghost release timer is in ghost house and mode change iteration and mode change timer. Alright, so in our restart method, we're going to do ghost release timer equals 0 and mode change iteration equals 1. Mode change timer equals 0. And then for the ghost house, we have to make sure that we only set that for 3 of the ghosts. So we say if transform.name doesn't equal ghost blinky, and in case you're wondering, the name, I'm getting that from the actual names that are in the hierarchy of our ghosts. If transform.name doesn't equal ghost blinky, then is in ghost house equals true, because the other 3 ghosts are going to be in the ghost house. Alright? So then what we need to do is we need to reset their current nodes. Okay, so we get node. No, we don't need to do that. We're going to set our current node equal to starting position. And then we're going to say if is in ghost house, direction equals vector2.up, target node equals current node dot neighbors, else direction equals vector2.left, and this is for Blinky, and target node equals choose next node, and then we're going to set previous node equal to the current node, and we're going to update our animator controller. Oops. Alright, so that should take care of the ghosts. Yep. So, back into our game board script. In that restart method, we need to actually call the restart method on the ghosts. And we need to call it on all the ghosts. So what we need to do is we need to create a game object array. And we're just going to call this O equals game object dot find game objects with tag, and the tag is going to be ghost. Okay, so now we've got an array of game objects with the tag ghost, so that means we've got all 4 ghosts in that game object array. So then we're just going to do a for each loop, and then we're going to do game object ghost in O. So for every, we're going to iterate over the array O, and for every game object in O, we're going to create a variable called ghost. Okay, so then all we have to do is do ghost dot ghost dot transform dot get component ghost dot restart. Okay. So we're looping over all the ghosts, and we're telling each one of them to call the restart method, which will then put them back to where they need to be and reset all of the variables that we need to reset. So let's go back into our game, press play. And the ghosts didn't get reset because we have a null reference exception error. And looks like it's having trouble getting a node from the starting position. So let's go back into Ghost and see what's going on here. We've got a starting position for Blinky, starting position for Pinky, no starting position for Inky, and no starting position for Clyde. So Inky and Clyde have the same starting position. And the starting position for both of them, I remember, you'll probably have to look it up, is pellet 212. And these are probably not named the same, but the pellet that I'm referring to is that red dot that's right here. So when you click that, you'll see that it's called pellet 212. And that'll be their starting position. So for Inky, we've set the starting position to 212. And for Clyde, we've set the starting position to 212. Now if we press play, everything should work as expected. Hey, alright, so now we're going to try and get all the ghosts to come out. Oh no. Alright, so now I'm not going to try to eat any of them. I'm just going to wait. Okay, so now I'm going to see what happens when we do a reset. Hey, everybody's back to where they need to be. Perfect. Okay, so the game as it is now is the mechanics are pretty much all there for us to basically finish it. because we can now. Well, I guess the only other thing we have to do to actually win the game, because now we've got a way for us to do a game over. You know what? What we forgot to do that I said that we would. Let's go back into our game board really quick, and let's create a variable to keep track of lives. So we're going to do public int Pac-Man lives, and we're going to set that equal to 3 to begin with. And every time a restart happens, we're going to decrement Pac-Man's lives. So we're going to say Pac-Man lives minus equals 1. So every time this restart method is called, Pac-Man's lives are going to be decremented by 1. So the first time he dies, his lives are going to go from 3 to 2, then 2 to 1, 2 to 0, and then finally we'll just be at game over. And that's going to be in the next tutorial. We're going to actually do a game over. We're going to do an intro. So a lot of the things that we're going to do in the next tutorial are mostly going to be aesthetic. So not so much programming as in creating the actual UI. And I think finally, to finish up with the last tutorial, we're probably going to add in all of the scores and stats and everything here on the right hand side. And then I'll probably do one more tutorial that's going to be a special tutorial, and it's going to concentrate mostly on scoring and special items, like, you know, when we get bananas and strawberries, and when Pac-Man actually eats the ghost, he gets points, and all of those get, you know, taken care of. So we're actually very, very close to finishing this game, and it's just pretty exciting because we'll have a fully working Pac-Man game. The only thing that I'll maybe address in like a bonus tutorial is going to the next level. What I'll do in the beginning is we'll just count all the dots, and then when we finish counting all the dots, we'll just restart the level on level 1 without making any modifications. But in Pac-Man, as you progress through the levels, what'll happen is one thing that'll make it more difficult is the Energizer pellets will last for a short amount of time. Frightened mode that'll be frightened mode. The scatter mode will last for a shorter amount of time, so they'll spend more time in chase mode, less time in scatter mode, and then the ghosts will start to get faster. No, I don't think the ghosts will get actually faster, because the ghosts are always just a little slower than Pac-Man. So that is that. We are getting very close, like I said. So anyways, hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next week.